And we back. Now today, that intro actually means something because I'm finally back home here in Chicago. If you didn't know, I was flown out to New York City by the great people of House of Highlights to record a live taping of our podcast in front of a lot of fans, met a lot of people, and it was just basically one of the best nights of my life. For y'all wondering, yes, we do plan on going to another cities to record the show, so just stay tuned. All right? So as soon as we touch down, I look at my phone because we finally got service. We were 30,000 feet in the air. Finally got service on my phone, and I see that Shams broke some big news. Y'all know Shams and Woes, they go head to head, basically battling to be the king of the news breaking, and Shams kind of won this week because we were kind of just struggling. We counted down the day. What is it, 26 days until the NBA season start? No news. We just sitting here twiddling our thumbs. But Shams broke the news that Jimmy Butler has officially requested a trade out of Minnesota. But let's take a step back. When he was traded from Chicago to Minnesota, the entire world, me included, thought that the Timberwolves won this trade. We're talking about a franchise that hadn't made the playoffs for over a decade, getting a star player to pair alongside their nice young pieces that can potentially elevate them to a playoff team. And that's exactly what happened. Jimmy Butler comes to town and they make the playoffs. But the entire time through the season, we were getting rumors and reports that Jimmy Butler was kind of butting heads with some of the other stars of the team. Talking about Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. Star. And basically when I see those type of reports of players not getting along in the locker room, I think about it two different ways. One is just a rumor, so we shouldn't look too much into it. And two, you don't have to be buddy best friends in the locker room in order to be a successful team. Just be co-workers. You show up to practice, you pass him the ball when he's open, boom, you can make the playoffs and be okay. So I kind of just took it for a grain of salt, and then this offseason happens, and there's a lot of things going on in Minnesota, from Thibodeau signing Luol Deng and having meetings with players, and you're like, why is he talking to them? And then you got Karl-Anthony Towns when Modern Warfare 2 becomes backwards compatible, saying, don't text me, don't call me, because I'm going to be gaming all day long. There's a lot of different things going on in Minnesota that, well, I hope we get like a 30 for 30 or a mini documentary on this offseason because it's been a wild one. But officially, Jimmy Butler was requested a trade. They were supposed to have a meeting, him and Tom Thibodeau in Minnesota, but Jimmy agent called up Thibs like, you know what? We're not coming to you. Come see us in LA. And I guess that dinner where they had this meeting didn't go too well because that's when he requested the trade. So the three teams that he mentioned as his top priority, these are the three teams that he'd be willing to sign an extension with the Brooklyn Nets, New York Knicks, and then the LA Clippers. Those three teams. And immediately some people are like, why would he pick those three teams? Those three teams are not good. But Jimmy Butler is playing this as smart as he can. Of course, man, I guess it would be cool to be like, man, I want to go to LA, play alongside LeBron. But the reason he picked those three teams is because he's trying to play with one of his homies, man. We cannot deny the fact that Karl-Anthony Towns and Wiggins have some type of game. But if you're butting heads, it just won't really work out. See, Jimmy Butler is a different breed than a lot of the younger guys in the league. I see him as a player that could have been very successful in the 90s, very successful in the early 2000s. He's grit and grind, and he's in the gym 24/7. You have to think about his upbringing. From literally homeless to playing JUCO, community college, to getting a scholarship to Marquette, to being the last drafted player in the first round in Chicago, spending a couple years of Are you kidding me? To spending his first couple years in Chicago basically coming off the bench and not getting a lot of tick. I just feel like Jimmy Butler's one of those players that wants to play with people that have that same fire as him. And Steven Jackson went onto Instagram basically to say that, listen, Wiggins, you got some game, but we don't know if you really got that heart. And maybe Jimmy Butler has that same opinion. Yes, Wiggins is talented. Karl-Anthony Towns is super talented. But if they don't have that same fire under them, I'm sure that really bothers Jimmy Butler. You got to think about it. The time is kind of ticking on Jimmy. When he's about to be 30 years old, when Karl-Anthony Towns and Wiggins are 22, 23, they still got 10 plus years in this league to get to superstardom or get to an NBA championship. And Jimmy Butler's looking at it like, you know what? I can't stay alongside the ride 2-3 years of just being a playoff team. I want to win now. And people were asking me, Kenny, do you think this makes Jimmy Butler a locker room cancer? Because here in Chicago, he butted heads with Fred Hoiberg and our front office guys. And then he goes to Minnesota. He's butting heads with this guy. So does that make him a locker room cancer? I'm just going to say no. At least not yet. I mean, if he goes to some of those other teams and we still get the same story, then maybe Jimmy Butler is. But at this point, I really can't say that. I just think he knows what he wants and he's trying to get to that situation. When he was traded to Minnesota, that wasn't his decision. He may have had this complete thought of he didn't want to be in Minnesota since the moment he was traded. He didn't have the opportunity to pick where he wanted to go. So now he's on the last year of his deal. He's exercising this pre-agency, something that Bill Simmons talks about on his podcast, where he says these players are going into their front office and saying, hey, I'm not going to resign. So you can trade me now or just watch me walk at the end of the season, but I recommend you trade me because you want to get something back. So now I'm looking at these tweets and stuff, and I'm thinking, man, the Bulls, we won that trade, huh? I don't know how I always make it about us, but it looked like we won that trade because Jimmy Butler was going to walk out of Chicago regardless, and we got 3 nice young pieces to kind of build around now. So shout out to the guys that I was really upset when that trade happened. I thought we were going to lose the trade by a lot, but now it looks like we're in a good spot. So for the past couple months, Karl-Anthony Towns has had this massive contract extension on the table. So massive, we're talking like $180 million contract. And the whole public is like, why hasn't Karl-Anthony Towns signed this contract extension? Why would he wait till next year when anything can happen? He can go down with an injury and boom, that $180 million turn into $60 million or turn into, 3.5 like DeMarcus Cousins with his injury. So why is this young superstar not signing his contract extension? And it comes out, he tells them, I'm not signing it until Jimmy is out of Minnesota. Yo, like I said, taking that button heads with a grain of salt. I don't think we can do that anymore. We're talking about your franchise player. Yes, Jimmy Butler is probably a better player right now, but Karl-Anthony Towns is 22 years old. And it looked like he's going to get better and better and better. If we're prioritizing players on your roster, Karl-Anthony Towns should be priority number uno. So now they're in a weird situation because they don't have to trade Jimmy. They can keep Jimmy on the roster. He plays well like he always does, and they become a playoff team again. Or you can trade him and get something for him. I don't really know what they're going to do, but definitely they don't have to trade him to those 3 teams we talked about. Yes, those are the teams that he'd be willing to go to, but they can do exactly what the San Antonio Spurs did and be like, you know what? I'm just going to trade you to the team that gives us the best offer. And that turned Kawhi Leonard to being up in Toronto instead of being in LA like he wanted to. Like, they could really screw Jimmy Butler over. Hey, we're going to send you to, what's the worst destination in the league right now? Sacramento? For Jimmy Butler, I think he just really wants to be in a huge market. And then you look at those 3 teams, he wants to play alongside one of the homies. Brooklyn Nets, going to have this offseason enough money to sign Jimmy Butler and one of his homies, whether it be Kawhi Leonard, whether it be Kyrie Irving, basically 2 max free agents. Same thing with the LA Clippers. And the same thing with the New York Knicks. So Jimmy is trying to get to a situation where he can help management build a team around him that have the same drive, that have the same aspirations of him. And I think that's what he wants all along. Now, we can't talk about the story without talking about the pettiness that's been going on between Karl-Anthony Towns, Steven Jackson, and all of this. So once the tweet came out that Jimmy Butler wanted out, Andrew Wiggins' brother came out with a hallelujah. Obviously, being Wiggins' brother, he talked to him like, yo, maybe this Jimmy thing ain't working out. You know, when something's going on in my life, you know who I talk to? I talk to one of the siblings. So same thing with Andrew Wiggins. He probably called up his brother. I think his name is Nick Wiggins. Like, man, Jimmy is in the locker room wild, and I don't really like this. And then that made Nick Wiggins say hallelujah when Jimmy Butler requested his trade. And then Steven Jackson comes on talking about Nick Wiggins, saying that, listen, Andrew, you should talk to your brother and be like, dude, relax, because we need Jimmy here. We're a team that hadn't made the playoffs in over a decade. Jimmy Butler came in and legitimately changed things around. So shout out to Call Me Up Vince. I saw this on the timeline and I thought this was perfect, right? To show how big of an impact Jimmy Butler really had to that team. So here we're looking at their defensive rating. When Jimmy Butler was off the court, they had the worst defensive rating in the league. You put them on the court, they're number 14. We all talk about how great of a defender Jimmy Butler is, and this is a great example of this. And then let's talk about the offensive side too. When he was off the court, they were the number 10 offense, which is still really, really good. That's a great offense. But you add them to it, They're number one offense. Now, this is somewhat of a small sample size because I think how many games did Jimmy Butler miss? Like 10, 12 games or so. But still, the numbers are there that proves that Jimmy Butler is that impactful of a player. So without him, well, that team doesn't make the playoffs last year. Let's be honest. Without him, that team does not make the playoffs. So shout out to Call Me Up Vince for bringing out these numbers. I just think it's dope. So without a doubt, Jimmy Butler is a star in this league. And now they have to figure out what they're going to do. Also, those teams that we mentioned, those three teams, they have to figure out what they want to do. Do they want to call up Thibodeau and offer a contract? Or do they want to be like, you know what? We're going to wait until the offseason because we can just sign him and not give up anything. Like, I went up to Twitter like, what do the Clippers really have to trade? Because if you didn't know, Jimmy Butler said that is his number one team on his priority list. He wants to get to a big market that has a lot of money, which makes sense. So if you're the Clippers, do you want to trade some of your young guys and say Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Or do you want to be like, Jimmy, we'll hit you up in the offseason. You're going to have Shai. You're going to have Tobias. You're going to have Avery Bradley. And then we could just keep what we have. I don't really know. So that's why I'm not a GM. Because would I make this trade? I don't really know. So will Jimmy Butler be a part of the Timberwolves at the beginning of the season? I'm going to go with the no. Because again, if it's true that Karl-Anthony Towns has not signed his extension because Jimmy Butler is there, then as far as the front office goes, I think they have to do what's best for Karl-Anthony Towns. 22 years old, already an all-star, had a season where he averaged 25 points per game. It is no joke that the guy is, if he's not already a star, if you don't classify him as a star already, he will be a star. So you have to benefit him most, and that means that Jimmy Butler may not be on the roster once the beginning of the season starts. And that's why we love the NBA. We just had like a 3-week period where there's not really much going on. And then boom, we have a stupid superstar about to get dealt again. So hopefully by the time this video comes out that nothing has happened, because I'm recording this very, very late at night. We're talking like 3:30 a.m. So maybe by the morning something has happened. But as of right now, that's all the news. And that's my opinion on it. In the comment section below, let me know what you think about the whole Jimmy Butler situation. Oh yeah. I forgot there's a name that we have to shout out, but not in a positive way. Oh no, Tom Thibodeau. We have to admit that some of this is his fault, right? I'm just gonna leave it at that. You tell me what you think. Thank y'all so much. Again, shout out to House of Highlights for flying me out to New York. Follow me on Instagram because I basically, on my Instagram story, I showed everything that we did in New York. We went to Flight Club. We took over Flight Club's Snapchat. You don't know, Flight Club is one of the biggest sneaker shops in the world. And I mean, you see right here, the boy's a sneakerhead, so being in that shop and taking over there, Snapchat was really dope. The live show in front of a bunch of fans, and then we had these shirts. We were in New York, so listen to this concept. That was dope. Shout out to the whole House of Highlights crew for making this happen. The Through the Wire jersey shirt in the Knick colors because we were in New York, so we got to represent. And on the back, it says King of the Fourth Quarter. Come on, man. And then we gave these out to every one of the fans that showed up. And if we come here in Chicago and make a live show, or we go to LA, or we go to Atlanta, or you're going to have these type of shirts with your team colors. So in Chicago, it'll be like Bulls colors. Same thing, but it was all love. Shout out to everybody that came through. Really excited about the future. Thank y'all so much. Peace.